Here is the list that shows the 34 distinct events that Abraham played a role in according to the Torah scroll. Events 6 through 10 have been crossed out. In this video, I'm going to take you through the next 5 steps. The red box is showing events 11 through 15. Event 11, Abram builds third altar. Event 12, Abram goes to war. Event 13, Abram and Melchizedek. Event 14, Abram and Bera. And event 15, Abram's vision and confirmation. Event 11, Abram builds third altar. We can see it's made up of one step, and that step can be found in Genesis 13, verse 18. The verse reads, Abram moved his tent and dwelled in the forest of Mamre, which is in Hebron. Abram built an altar to Hashem. The event above shows Abram has pitched his tent in the forest of Mamre. Abram built an altar to Hashem. Event 12, Abram goes to war. We can see this event is made up of 4 steps. Step 1 can be found in Genesis 14, verse 13. Step 2 can be found in Genesis 14, verse 14. Step 3 can be found in Genesis 14, verse 15. And step 4 can be found in Genesis 14, verse 16. The verse reads for step 1, The fugitive came and told Abram, who was dwelling in the forest of Mamre. The fugitive was the brother of Ishcol and the brother of Aner. These 3 people were Abram's allies. The step above depicts Mamre, the fugitive, telling Abram that his relative was taken captive. Step 2. When Abram heard that Lot was taken captive, he armed the servants in his house, 318. Abram pursued them as far as Dan. The step above shows Abram arming his servants for war. Step 3. Abram and his servants struck them at night and drove them as far as Hobath, which is north of Damascus. The step above shows Abram and his servants fighting against the 4 kings. Lot and the spoils of Sodom reside within the step. Step 4. Abram brought with him all the possessions of Sodom, the women, the people, and Lot his relative. The step above shows Abram has defeated the 4 kings and taken possession of the spoils of Sodom. The sequence of event 12 describes Abram going to war to save Lot. Mamre tells Abram that Lot was taken captive. Abram arms 318 of his servants and pursues the 4 kings. Abram and his servants defeat the 4 kings and bring back the people and possessions that were taken from Sodom. Abram also brought back Lot. Event 13, Abram and Melchizedek. Here we can see the event is comprised of 4 steps. Step 1 is found in Genesis 14, verse 17. Step 2 is found in Genesis 14, verse 18. Step 3 is found in Genesis 14, verse 19. And step 4 is found in Genesis 14, verse 20. Now for step 1, it reads, The king of Sodom went out to meet Abram from his return from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him. They met in the valley of Sheva, which is the king's valley. The step above shows Abram returning from defeating the 4 kings and is now confronted by Bera, the king of Sodom. Step 2, But Melchizedek, the king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest of God, the Most High. The step above shows a king called Melchizedek coming in with an offering of bread and wine for Abram. Step 3. And he blessed him by saying, Blessed Abram, God of the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be God the Most High, who has delivered your foes into your hand. The step above gives an example of what Melchizedek is saying in his blessing. Melchizedek calls Abram the God of the Most High, and then blesses the real God of the Most High. Melchizedek put Abram before Hashem as a God. And that is being depicted in the step for step 3, Abram being number 1 and Hashem being number 2. Step 4, and he gave him a tenth of everything. The step above shows Melchizedek's offering of a tenth to Abram. The sequence of event 13 describes Abram being greeted by 2 kings on his return trip home from defeating the 4 kings. The first step in the sequence is actually the last step in the sequence. Bera, the king of Sodom, comes out to greet Abram. Abram just had an unusual meeting with Melchizedek. Melchizedek got to Abram before Bera. Melchizedek brought out bread and wine and blessed Abram in the most peculiar way. Melchizedek blesses Abram by calling Abram God of the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. Melchizedek then sends a blessing out to the true God of the Most High. Melchizedek raised Abram to the level of a god in his blessing, and then put Abram before God in his blessing. Melchizedek then gave Abram a tenth of the bread and wine that he brought out. It is important to know which character is giving the tenth, and we'll get to that in a later video, why that's so important. Event 14, Abram and Bera. We can see this event is comprised of 2 steps. Step 1 is found in Genesis 14, verses 21 through 24, and step 2 is found in Genesis 14, verse 24. Step 1 reads, "The king of Sodom says to Abram, 'Give me the people and take the possessions.' Abram then says to the king of Sodom, 'I lift my hand to Hashem, God of the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. I will not take a thread or a shoe strap or anything that is yours. So you can be the one that says, it was I that made Abram wealthy.' That will not happen." The step above shows Abram raising his hand to Bera, king of Sodom. Step 2, "Only what my servants and the men that accompanied me ate, Anur, Ishkol, and Mamre, they will take their portion." The step above shows Abram giving the spoils of Sodom to Bera. The sequence of event 14 describes Abram's conversation with Bera. Abram is coming from the encounter with Melchizedek. Bera approaches Abram and attempts to recover the people of Sodom. Bera asks Abram to give him the people and to take the possessions for himself. Abram declines Bera's offer and lifts his hand to Bera and says, "I lift my hand to Hashem, God of the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. I will not take a thread or a shoe strap or anything that is yours. So you can be the one that says, 'It was I that made Abram wealthy.' That will not happen." Abram passes on to Bera what was blessed onto Abram from Melchizedek. Melchizedek called Abram God of the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. Abram then calls Bera God of the Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. Abram is lifting his hand to Bera. Abram is not lifting his hand to the sky or to Hashem, who is lurking somewhere in the background. Abram then gives Bera the people and possessions of Sodom. Melchizedek rose Abram to the level of a god and then gave Abram a gift. Abram raises Bera to the level of God and then gives Bera a gift. Abram replicates the action onto Bera that was performed on Abram from Melchizedek. Event 15, Abram's vision and confirmation. we can see this event is made up of 10 steps. Step 1 is found in Genesis 15 verse 1. Step 2 is found in Genesis 15 verses 2 and 3. Step 3 is found in Genesis 15 verse 4. Step 4 is found in Genesis 15 verses 5 and 6. Step 5 is found in Genesis 15 verses 7 through 8. Step 6 is found in Genesis 15 verse 9. Step 7 is found in Genesis 15 verse 10. Step 8 is found in Genesis 15 verse 11. Step 9 is found in Genesis 15 verses 12 through 16. And step 10 is found in Genesis 15 verses 17 through 21. Now for the first step, we see Abram standing there. The verse reads, "After these events, the word of Hashem came to Abram in a vision, saying, 'Fear not, Abram, I am a shield for you. Your reward shall be very great.'" The step above shows Abram hearing words from Hashem in a vision. Step 2. Abram says, "Adonai, Hashem, what can you give me, being that I am without child, and the servant of my house is the Damascus Eliezer?" Abram then says, "To me you have given no offspring, and my servant will inherit me." The step above shows Hashem not giving Abram a child and Eliezer in position to inherit Abram. It is important to note that the Hebrew word Adonai is first used in the Torah scroll here at Event 15, Step 2. It is important to note that Abram addresses Hashem with the word Adonai. Adonai translates in English to Lord. Step 3. Immediately the word of Hashem came to him, saying, "That one will not inherit you. Only he that shall come forth from within you shall inherit you." The step above shows Abram with his own child that came forth from within Abram. The arrow from the child to Abram shows that the child will be the one who will inherit Abram. Eliezer has an X on him, denoting that Eliezer will not be the one to inherit Abram. Step 4. And he took him outside and said, "Gaze up towards the heaven and count the stars if you are able to count them. So shall your offspring be." Abram trusted in Hashem and considered it as righteousness. The step above shows Abram being taken outside to look up at the stars of the heaven. Abram is still having a vision. Hashem insinuates that Abram's offspring shall be as the stars of heaven. Abram considers the saying as a form of righteousness. In Hebrew, the Zadik is a righteous person. Noah was a Zadik. Righteousness will be represented by the 18th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Zadi. Therefore, Zadi equals stars of heaven, as is algebraically shown underneath the step. Step 5. And he said to him, "I am Hashem who took you out of Ur-Kasdim to give you this land to inherit." Abram says, "Adonai, Hashem, how will I know that I am going to inherit it?" The step above shows Abram questioning Hashem on inheriting the land. Again, Abram will address Hashem with the word Adonai. This is the second time the word Adonai is written within the Torah scroll. Step 6. Hashem said, "Take unto me a heifer, a female goat, a ram, a turtle dove, and a pigeon." The step above shows the animals that Hashem requested to Abram in the vision. Step 7. Abram took the animals and cut them in the center. Abram laid each half against its counterpart. Abram did not cut up the birds. The step above shows Abram cutting an animal in half and laying the pieces next to one another. It is important to note that Abram is awake from his vision and is operating in reality. The Torah scroll quickly shifts into Abram's movements without mentioning that Abram awoke from his vision. Step 8. Birds of prey descended upon the animals, and Abram drove them away. The step above shows vultures swooping down upon the animals, and Abram driving the vultures away. Step 9. The sun began to set, and a deep sleep fell upon Abram. A dread and darkness also fell upon Abram. Hashem said to Abram, "Know undoubtedly that your offspring shall be strangers in a land not their own. They shall serve them and be oppressed by them for 400 years. The nation that they serve I will judge, and your offspring will leave with great wealth. Abram, you shall lie with your ancestors in peace and be buried in a good old age. And the fourth generation shall return to this land, for the iniquity of the Amorite will then be full." The step above shows Abram in a deep sleep with a fear dread shock upon him. Hashem stands at the right of the scene talking to Abram while Abram is in a deep sleep. It is important to note the number 400 is part of the covenant that Hashem makes with Abram. Step 10. The sun set, and it was very dark. A smoking furnace and a torch of fire passed between the pieces. In that day Hashem made a covenant with Abram, saying, "To your offspring I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates River." The step above shows the smoking furnace and a torch of fire passing between the pieces. It is important to note the phrase, "in that day," within this step. The sequence of Event 15 describes the details of a vision and an offering to confirm the promise within the vision. Event 15 is very cryptic and mysterious. The event starts out with Hashem promising a great reward unto Abram. Abram will ask Hashem what he can be given, being that he has no offspring. Hashem will take Abram out and tell Abram to look at the stars in the heaven. Hashem tells Abram that his offspring will be as the stars. Abram will consider the action to be equivalent with righteousness. Hashem tells Abram that he will inherit the land. Abram will question Hashem by wanting to know how he will inherit the land. Abram doubts and questions Hashem. Hashem will request animals for an offering. Abram acquires the animals and cuts the animals in half. Birds of prey descend upon the animals, and Abram drives them away. Abram falls into a deep sleep with dread and darkness upon him. Hashem makes a covenant with Abram that his offspring will return to the land in 400 years. Hashem mentions the sin of the Amorites is tied to the 400-year waiting period. A smoking furnace and a torch of fire pass between the animal pieces. The Hebrew word Adonai is used for the first time within the Torah scroll in Event 15. It is important to take note that Abram considered the insinuated phrase, "stars of heaven," to be equivalent with righteousness. Abram's algebraic statement will serve as a key to unlock many doors, locked doors that lie ahead. In the next video, we will look at events 16 through 20. So I'll see you in the next video.